school, and I appreciate greatly the honor, and especially the advisory committee headed by a good friend. I want to take 5.5 minutes to maybe paint a few pictures of what it was like here in those days. It was always fun. It was never dull. The public relations, community relations, publications, and everything else that somebody didn't want was thrown downstairs in the basement to our department. And we call it a department, but there was only one person in it with a secretary, and that was me. But we had some of the most talented and awesome people working with us, and they were all students. And some of them are here today. Anything that breathed on this campus had a story since their hometown newspaper by these people. And they worked every day, and I don't know whether it's $1 an hour or 50 cents an hour you got, but Bill and Carol are here. Where are you? They were superstars. But we finally came along and had enough money to hire a professional writer. I never did consider myself a professional writer because I didn't have a spell checker or a grammar checker. And I was slow. But Bill and I had worked for us as a student and then went to work for the Birmingham Post-Herald. And we were very fortunate in being able to scrap up just a few dollars to get him to come on board full time. And then that released me to spend most of my nights and days at the local dailies. It was a tough road because before, and even after we moved to this new campus, Birmingham Southern was the only place to get an education. They had the daily papers, they had the influential, moneyed people, and mostly Howard College, when I started night school there, was just a preacher's college on the outskirts of town, so most people thought. But two men thought that things should be better. Frank Sanford, who had started an insurance company and took it to a very successful level, and a lot of people that worked with him became very successful too. And Major Harville G. Davis. These guys had the foresight and the vision to buy 400 acres on the side of the mountain, a good ways out of town, what was to become this campus. They needed a third person to put it all together. And they found that in the young man of Leslie S. Wright that they brought on board. He had an awesome duty when he got here. You can imagine standing down at Lakeshore Drive and looking up a road to 400 acres of mud. No plants, no trees, no anything, and 5 stark buildings on that land. So when Wright got here, he had the responsibility of raising hundreds of millions of dollars to build the campus with the support of the board and Frank Sanford and Major Davis stayed on for a couple of years. He also had the responsibility of trying to get a livable wage for a faculty that I considered one of the best that I had ever been around. Dedicated people. So that was the beginning of a long, happy 10 years. So many stories that could be written and told about that era. but not for Frank Sanford and Harville Davis and Leslie Wright, dreaming big dreams. You wouldn't be able, I don't think, to see this beautiful campus, one of the most beautiful in the nation, here today and enjoy. So I wanted to pay tribute to them and what they did. And it was just a wonderful place to be if you were in public relations or marketing. You had everything in front of you. You had to win over the newspapers. We already had the television and radio because I worked for most of them. But we had to get known further than just the community. So many of our efforts went into that. And one other important part of this campus being here was the Alabama Baptist State Convention. They shared their scarce resources with this college all through the years. Now, I've never became a Baptist because several people wanted me to. And when somebody wants me to do something, I usually want to make up my mind myself. But I owe, and the college owes, a great debt of service to the Alabama Baptist State Convention because they, when there was very little money, they came through with money every year, even though they irritated the devil out of it a lot of times. Many other stories. If you had about 30 minutes, I would go into some. But I want to say one thing about the new president, Dr. Westmore. He's the perfect man for this job that the university needs today. He's a people person. He is absolutely comfortable in any situation. He loves to go out into the public and speak and talk. And anytime you meet him, he is always a nice, friendly, warm person. So I have great admiration for him because he has a tough job in front of him. The school has come a long way, and this year it has 3,000 undergraduate students and almost 1,800 graduate students. 48 states the students come from, and I think it was 15 foreign countries. So from the days of the 5-star buildings and the mud, it has come a long way. But the mud helped me tremendously. Helped pay my way through college, buy a car, and sorry I lost all of that underwear. But I thank you for electing me to this and hanging my picture on the wall. It has been a very special day, and I want you to meet some very special people. Don't stand up because I know you're going to get mad if you don't stand up. My wife, Jan, she's sitting on the back row. Megan, my daughter, hold your hand up and wave, Megan. And 2 of the people we call the wild ones. And Kurt, the honorable son-in-law. Very proud. Thank you so much.
I'd like to briefly recognize some of the family members of the late Hugh Frank Buge Smith who are with us today. First, we have his daughter, Melanie Smith-Taylor, with us. And we have his granddaughter, Susanna, with us as well. And we also have a bunch of other Hugh Frank Smith family members that I had the opportunity to chat briefly with. If you could recognize them briefly. I had the opportunity to interview his former colleague, Jim Willis, at the Memphis Press Scimitar this week. He called Hugh Frank one of the best journalists of his generation. But he also said, stop for a second. He was even a better friend, husband, and father. Hugh Frank, like all good journalists, fought for causes that he believed were right. When Germantown, Tennessee became more industrialized, he resisted it. Willis told me that Hugh Frank enjoyed having the last farm in the city limits. As 500,000, as $1 million houses went up around him, Hugh Frank responded by buying more animals. It was his way of saying no to what others perceived as progress. He felt it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do for that community. Willis told an anecdote of when one of the Smith Farm peacocks escaped. A local police officer found the peacock and took it to the jail for safekeeping. It did not take a leading detective to figure out where the peacock had come from. It was the Smith Farm. Willis told me, I got a call. It was Hugh Frank telling me, get my camera. He wanted to get a picture of his peacock in jail. He described it as an episode of the Andy Griffith Show. After I began working at Sanford, I had the opportunity to meet with the senior faculty, Dr. Jones, Dr. Clemenson, and I asked Dr. Clemenson to give me a little bit of the history of the journalism program here. Tell me some of the famous alumni. Dr. Clemenson quickly told me about Hugh Frank Smith and his accomplishments as a journalist. He also told me about how Hugh Frank continued to give back to Sanford University. In 1988, he established the Hugh Frank and Rachel Smith Award for Outstanding Student Journalist. Every year, the outstanding graduating senior would get a generous check from Hugh Frank and Rachel Smith and a plaque. One of the recipients of the award was Carol Guthrie, who's with us today. Carol became an award-winning broadcast journalist and is now working in the Office of the United States Trade Representative. Carol came to the Wall of Fame ceremony today to say thank you to the Smith family for the generosity. It really made a difference in her life. Dr. Clemenson added one thing, and that was Hugh Frank took great pride in this award. Journalism excellence was important to him. Sanford was important to him. Every year, Dr. Clemenson would get a call from him saying, whose name do I put on the plaque, and who do I make the check out to? This ongoing commitment to Sanford University did not go unrecognized. This ongoing commitment to the journalism program did not go unrecognized. When we started to talk about who should be on our Wall of Fame, Hugh Frank Smith's name quickly came up. For these reasons, please welcome me in recognizing Hugh Frank Smith and inducting him into the Sanford JMC Wall of Fame.